baby, we're starting soon.
What is up, Album Book Club? Welcome back to another album review. Today we are reviewing Dance No One's Watching by Ezra Collective. This album came out today, and I think the switcher's falling a little bit. We got Carl with us once again, which is going to be a normal thing from now on, for the most part.
For the most part.
I mean, he's not here next week.
Yeah,
Probably. We'll see what happens.
I'm not here next week either.
Yes, you are.
Damn it.
Shit, I put it back on the screen. We also got Claude with us.
We got Claude.
Claude gets his own camera today for no reason. Yeah, you guys ready to... Oh, yeah, new set. Probably should do
Yeah,
that.
we are in
New studio.
new studio. V2.
Yes, sir.
Second new Stubby.
We'll figure out how to fit 5 people in here eventually.
Yeah, it is a much smaller Stubby, but a much more private Stubby.
I think we can mount a seat up where Claude is and get some.
That's a good idea.
Some camage going.
Give him a stool.
I think we
Shit
just
him.
get a bunch of those like carnival swings on chains.
That's a
and
good
just
idea.
Mount those from the ceiling.
Yeah.
Then we'll just have like a group ceiling hangout.
So we'll have to tape the booms to us so they aren't completely across the room all the time, but... Boom harnesses we'll need.
Boom harness.
But yeah,
That was my nickname in college.
I remember that.
Yeah.
All right, you guys ready to get into the top 3 on this album?
If I turn the page, yes.
I do believe.
He has turned the page. We're ready to move on.
This one, no Thai food.
It's true. I had a Reuben for lunch.
Oh,
Ooh, that's a. Did you go to the place?
I did. Went to the place and got a Reuben. It's good.
I almost said something I wasn't supposed to. Almost doxed us a little bit there.
Was it the place?
It was the place. But yeah, my top 3 were God Gave Me Feet for Dancing, Ajala, I think it's called. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and then No One's Watching Me.
My top 3 were Shaking Body, Have Patience, and Everybody.
So I had God Gave Me Feet for Dancing, Everybody, and No One's Watching.
Oh. There was one also on my list that was very close. I'll give an honorable mention real quick if I can find it. To N29. That one was very close, but just barely got beat out.
I believe I had that one on my lower side.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of our lower songs, I have 2 answers for bottom song because I have my cop-out ass answer and then my real answer. Cop-out answer is Our Element, Act 3, the 3rd interlude. And then my real answer is Hear Me Cry.
Yeah, I just wrote down Our Element.
That is valid.
Yeah, so I wrote down specifically bottom song non-interlude, because this is actually
Mhm.
the 4th bottom song, is Have Patience for me.
Patience. All right. You ready to start this off
I'll
in
just
the
say,
first track?
I believe The Traveler can be used as my non-lowest.
I forget where both of those are in the lineup. I think they're towards the end.
7 and 11.
18's Have Patience.
Gotcha.
That is the second.
Second to last, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, we'll start it off with intro. I gave this song a 6.5.
I gave this a 7.
I gave this one a 4. Do you want me to go? Okay, so
Yeah, you should probably just go.
it's in the context of the album, I would give this a lot higher rating because I appreciate that it's setting the scene for the fact that we're at a live club, we're listening to this band. Other than that, it's not really doing anything. So that's how I'd end up with a 4.
it is an intro track, and usually intros get around a 6.5 for me. But this one's a little bit longer. It does a little bit more than a normal intro. I'm still gonna give it the normal rates, but like it does exactly what it says it's gonna do. It intros the album. It starts you off, lets you know where you are, what you're getting into.
Yeah, I liked the actual music in it. There was just like the indistinct chatter. This is where I got the vibe that this was like a coffee shop or like a small record store or something, like a small area with a lot of people that are there hanging out and there's music going on. And it was a vibe.
Did you look at the visualizers? Did you watch any
I
of
did
those?
not.
So it's just like a small concert. It's kind of and
Okay.
the visualizers do a good job with the vibe.
Yeah, I think the playlist that I watched with all the songs only had the one video for God Gave Me Feet for Dancing. I don't know what. I think I watched the wrong one.
It's I watched them all with the visualizer, but it's basically the same thing the entire time. It looks like concert clips, and it might not be the same thing, but might actually be different clips from the same concert.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it wasn't synced up to what the band was playing exactly, so I don't know if it was just a repeating clip.
I'm
or
sure
what.
that's usually visualizers aren't like actual clips because that'd just be a music video. But
Right.
yeah, probably is something like that.
Yeah, they were all exactly the same though.
Hit the quick quad
I
pass.
had to give Claude a pass before the camera shuts off. Yeah, we got anything else about intro? I feel like that's the longest we've ever talked about an intro for.
I think we talked longer than the intro was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About.
So yeah, we'll move on to The Herald. I gave this song a 7.5.
I gave this an 8.
I gave this one a 7.
So yeah, the intro to this song I thought was a little bit too long, but then the horns come in, the bass comes in, and those two things are pretty much the standout for this entire album for me. This one immediately made it onto a playlist. It's a tiny bit repetitive, but I you don't notice if it's like background driving music, which is exactly what I'm going to use this for. So
Yeah. I think this song showed something that it's either going to be damning to you or you're going to love it like I did, which is you can hear the like cracking in the tone of the trumpet, like when he's straining the notes, you can really, really hear it. And I love that, just coming from a horn player background. Like it shows that these guys are really in there playing and trying. But to another degree, you could do another take without it probably. So it's, just whichever side you like. The bass is killer. This entire album, groovy as hell. Percussion is great. The main hook, I guess, or the riff, do you still call it a riff if it's not played on a guitar?
Yeah.
Oh, well, the main riff is very fun. It is in there a lot, and it gets very repetitive, but not terrible.
Yeah, I just wrote, you kind of get the vibe of the album off this track. It's a very upbeat jam, very good solos. I thought it was kind of repetitive. I definitely agree with that, but I will make a point to say that, like the rest of this album, it sounds incredible. Everything on this album sounds really, really good. They did a really, really good job with all the mixing, and I really would have liked to have played it over big speakers loud. And I think that's kind of what this is meant to be, is kind of like you're having a dance party and you turn this on and leave it on. And in that kind of sense, the whole thing makes a lot of sense. But it does. It has this awesome mix, awesome punch, awesome drive.
yeah, completely agree. Now we're going to move on to the first of many interludes. I give this song a 5 out of 10.
Wait, what's this one called?
This is Cloakroom Link Up Act 1.
No, we have one more.
I was gonna say you
Shit, I
definitely
did miss
skipped
that
one.
one. Shit. All right, Palm Wine, my bad. I give this song a 7 out of 10.
I give this a 7.5.
I gave this one a 7.
Yep. This song is a vibe. There's a really cool piano on it, but once again, this is background driving music. There's a piano, there's a bass, both going nuts. That's all I really asked for from this.
All of my complaints came down to production. The trumpets came in way, way louder than they should have. I say way louder, but literally just turn them down like 3-4%. They're just very strong. and then the piano gets a solo in there while it's being drowned out by the rest of everything. Piano just needs to come up a little. Everything sounds good while it's there, just some leveling issues.
So, you know, to touch on what Logan's saying, I think if you look at this as like a purely jazz album, I definitely required a lot more dynamic range in general. But seeing this as more of a kind of dance, or they list it as like Afrobeat, the kind of like one range thing makes sense. The kind of drive forward that it has the whole time, and it's kind of relentless in that kind of forward motion. You know, think of like almost like EDM or something if it was more tasteful. You know, it's got this kind of like push and push and push, and really there's not any sort of swell or dynamics or any of that stuff unless it's just in the arrangement, unless there's instruments pulling out and then being put back in. So that's why all the drum beats are like slamming the entire time, and they're all this very just driving forward thing, because there's got to be something for people to dance to. So you're never gonna get these like laid back moments in this album. I could be totally wrong. I could be mistaking what it's meant to be, but that's kind of what I took away. This one bumped the tempo up a little bit, which made me happy. More faster is always more gooder. That makes me really, really happy. But it was a little long for me. I thought, as much as I talk about the dynamic range and stuff, I feel like some of these songs are very underdeveloped, is the way I would put it. Now, that's not necessarily the right word. This is more of a jam, more of that kind of situation where it's meant to be this kind of long, almost mesmerizing kind of thing. You're not supposed to necessarily be paying attention to all of it, but a lot of my favorite jazz is kind of that too, but it still has a bridge or a B section, or the chord changes change for the solo, and we're not going to get much of that for this whole album, let alone this track. So put that complaint here.
I think this album is a great example of something that's very similar, like the Electric Indigo, whereas like a lot of their tracks are, while good recorded, killer live, because they are jams, where it's like you're supposed to have this lead here, like the hook is here, and then it leads into this breakdown section. You can tell there's parts, especially in like later songs in this album, where there's supposed to be like an instrumental break that's probably 15 or 20 minutes, and it's just toned back to like one instrument for like 16 measures.
And to your point, that is something I will 100% agree with. If you like any sort of music that's improvisational at all, it will always be better live. Not sometimes. It will always be better live. There is not a situation where the live album is not better than the studio cut of a jazz track, other than maybe in fidelity, maybe in mixed quality, because they were using who knows what out live, or you know, you may get audience noise, but the actual performances of the musicians will always be better live. That's just part of the genre.
I say there's even certain artists that I only like live, like Jimi Hendrix. I'm not a huge lover of Jimi Hendrix, but Jimi Hendrix live stuff, where I can listen like 2 different recordings of the same song and it's completely different, like solo wise. I love that. It's just, it brings fun to the instrument, I think, and just music in general.
There are definitely a lot of bands that aren't fun to listen to a live album of, but would be live to go to the show, or fun to go to the live show. Jazz is not that way. So I felt like it was an important thing to make that.
Mars Volta is that thing. One of the best live show experiences I've ever had.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun.
All right. Now we can get into this interlude. This is Cloakroom Link Up Act 1. I said it earlier, I gave it a 5 out of 10.
I gave this one a 7.
4.
Damn. I thought that this was just, there was a seamless transition here. This one was like truly seamless. And it was a good vibe switch. I thought this was like, they were clearly changing gears, and I was like, I know that was happening. And it only got a 7 because it's an interlude. Just attach this to a song, don't give it a track list. Boom. Fixed.
24 seconds, you know the rules. Interludes don't get good scores, like 9 out of 10 times, because either they should be put on the song after or before, on either end, or they shouldn't be there at all. There is one later that I think is the exception to that rule, but that's it.
So I had actually had written at this point I would probably like to hear a cut of this album where they had slammed the interludes onto the tracks. That's again in the jazz idiom. There's a very common thing to have a really long interlude or have a really long kind of thing building up to something, or kind of just it takes a while to get to where you're going, and that's a very normal thing. And I understand this is a very commercial album for what genre it's in, but I probably would have liked at least a couple of these to be slammed into the track. The only reason the interludes get really low scores is because I just kind of wish they weren't there for me. But at the end of the day, I didn't count the album any lower because of it.
Hello, KB and Dylan, who are watching on the TV at home. That's all I got. Moving on. Unless we have anything else to say about this 24-second song.
It was 24 seconds.
Next up, God Gave Me Feet for Dancing. I gave this a 10 out of 10.
I gave this one a 7.5.
I give this one a 9.
I was sitting here listening to this song. First off, great song, great feature. I think features throughout almost always kill it on this album, with maybe one exception, but we'll get to it. I was listening to this song, and I got about halfway through, locked in at a 9.95. And then about the halfway point, I was like, why is it not a 10? And I could not answer that question, so got bumped up.
I really liked all the features on this album. I'll go ahead and say that. They were all great. And I think they were my favorite parts of all this album. I don't know. I think one of my songs of the top 3 might have been another track. But this was the point where I was like, oh, okay. Because this track does have... It's only slightly. It doesn't take away from the pull of the album or the drive of the album. But this track does have a distinctly different kind of aura, if not a vibe. It's got kind of a different thing. And I think I was really ready for that after 4 tracks that sounded really similar. So I just really liked this track too.
I think what happened was I was getting really into the groove of no vocals upon this listening, because this song has been out for quite a while. It was your song of the day when it came out, and it's been in my playlist since we found out about that song being out. And it's great. I listen to it almost every day. But when you're 4 instrumentals in, or well, 2 true instrumentals and then an intro and the other interlude, that's the word. I wasn't really wanting vocals at that point. I was like, I'm ready to ride the rest of this out all instrumental, just funk and jazz and wrecking it up.
I had that thought, but not until later. Like, I don't think I could have done 19 songs of instrumental, but I mean, I was welcome to the change here, or ready for a change here, but not like. But I wasn't mad that vocals were on this song.
No, I wasn't even mad about it. I was just the vibe came across wrong. I was just like, oh, I don't think I was ready for it yet. I could have used probably 2 more instrumentals before being like, yeah, it's vocal time. But also what I was listening to before this was like white girl pop music, so vocal heavy. Quad cam.
I accidentally hit the screen again too.
Yeah, I did say, and I forgot to mention it, this song falls into the background in like the best way possible. This is like the kind I just wanted to get up and dance to it, which is a good thing. I could not dance in my setting, but I would have loved to just start going crazy.
Oh yeah. Is it ad break time?
Is it ad break time? Hey, do you want to get a cool hoodie that looks exactly like the one I'm wearing? Well, head over to, what's the link?
I think if you look up Album Book Club 4th Wall, it'll show up.
Yeah, go to Album Book Club 4th Wall and you can check out our wonderful merchandise. What do we have? We've got some cool t-shirts on there, the wonderful Stashes Back hoodie, and we've also got our Album Book Club hats, the newest addition to our merch as of this moment. They're very comfy, very cozy.
I've said it every week for the last couple of weeks, but we have another merch drop coming whenever I sit down and do it.
It's a lot of work to do things that you don't want to do. It's also funny. We don't have a hat right now. The hat is coming back. Every time we do a hat read now, no one's got a damn hat to present. Now Carl does. Yeah.
I was on Claude Cam. I didn't get that.
Sorry, I have a hat. I'm back.
Tell us about your album Hat Club hat.
This Hat Club hat is incredible. It's cozy. It fits my gargantuan head. You don't even know how much a problem it is.
Yeah, to join the album Hat Club for a one-time monthly payment, once ever, you can acquire one, and then you're part of Album Hat Club.
Should we make a Hat Club exclusive hat one day?
I think we should.
I think we should.
We should make a Hat Club exclusive hat, which, as of this current moment, only like 8 people and 1 pending
So album
can get that hat.
Album Book Club Hat Club exclusive hat. Can it be a book?
Exclusive hat book. I can't wait for the Album Book Club to start a real book club
Nah.
where it's just music books. We're like, this week we're reading The Dirt.
I've got some really sad ones. Most musicians' biographies are just really, really sad.
I've got, I think the last one I read was The Heroin Diaries by Nikki Sixx. And man, like reading someone who's strung out on heroin's thoughts is just so depressing.
Yeah, I bet. All right, we ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right, next up is Ajala, I think is how you say it. I'll probably somebody let me know eventually, but I gave this song a 9.5 out of 10.
I gave this one an 8.
I give this one a 7.5.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll explain it. I don't know. At this point, I was like, oh, they kind of went back. But I was really happy that it was more faster and more gooder. So it was above a 7 like the rest of the tracks. And just to be clear, I don't hate it. 5 is a very middle of the road score for me. So a 7.5 is a good score.
Basically, if it's under a 5, Carl will never play it again.
That's not necessarily true either. I still listen to Chumbawamba every now and again. If I get something stuck in my head for 10 years, you know, it's like...
Please tell me it's Drip, Drip, Drip.
What?
The Chumbawamba song.
Oh, no, it's Tub Thumping. It's definitely Tub Thumping.
Have you never listened to the rest of that godforsakenly terrible album?
Never on purpose. So if I've never heard it accidentally, probably not.
Well, hey, if you want an accurate representation of the scores of that album, you can go check out the album book club.
Can't remember if that one's still up or not.
That one might be taken.
It might be gone.
That one might be scrubbed from the face
Carl
of the
can
earth.
watch it because we have it. But
We have back.
Do you guys discuss on what exactly a Chumbawamba is? Because I've always wondered.
I think it's the thing on the album cover.
Oh.
my dad says we need more cameras and more cardboard cutouts to cut to randomly.
Can we get it like a random slap chop guy cardboard cutout to go to?
Vince?
Is it Vince? Yeah.
Vince? He's the ShamWow guy, right? Or is that somebody else?
I think he was the ShamWow guy, yeah.
Did he get out of jail?
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure he got arrested for like soliciting prostitution in like South Africa or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Something outrageously ridiculous.
It's not a good story. I know that the ShamWow is still a good product, though.
Yeah. Cleans up all my spills and messes.
We ready to repivot back to this
Yeah.
song?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we're talking about Ajala.
This one's been out for a while. It was a song of the day, kind of a long time ago. I forget exactly how long, but it got faster. It was when this came out, I was really excited for this song, and it made me really excited for this album. And I was sure that it was going to be on Carl's top 3, but
I liked it. I don't know.
I think the reason I liked it and Carl probably didn't is because I notably liked the percussion in this song. I thought it was really good, and Carl's a drum snob, so...
Actually, I'm a jazz snob, and I think that's the whole problem with this album for me is I know like so much really good jazz that I have way too much context to try and listen to something that's kind of getting close to it and like not fully. So I had trouble kind of letting it be its own thing and not comparing it to Herbie Hancock and stuff like that.
I think to a small degree I was the target audience with this, as I have very minimal reference to jazz, and what I do like is typically this more fun, upbeat stuff, or it's like the wacky, outrageous Japanese shit, the stuff you guys show me. So it's like I don't have too much to frame this up against, so I'm just framing it up against how I would a normal song and how it makes me feel, and that's why I think this is it's just so fun and uplifting.
So for the most part, that's kind of what I did too, but I think that's what I try to do every week.
But this song did have random crowd banter back in it, and that pissed me off. I usually like it on like a live song or like songs where it clearly is a live track. Like Frampton Comes Alive, if you hear crowd noise, you're like, I'm in the stadium. But this one, it did not feel like I was in the coffee shop.
I think it only happens at the beginning and like the very end.
Yeah, it felt like somebody wandered into the booth having a conversation with somebody else.
You know, there's actually this really funny thing where a lot of live sounds you hear on recorded albums. We'll go into a Carl rant. Sorry, I should have started with that. So they actually will play other live albums and play the crowd noise of that live album on other albums in the future. And so it's like this game amongst recording engineers in the know to try and guess where the crowd noise came from off of the other albums. So like a lot of times they'll leave it exactly, and I forget, you know, I know there's an album where a guitarist made a mistake, and it's on a record, a very famous record, and they covered it up with noise from a Jimi Hendrix live album, and that's how it all started. But a lot of times when you hear like crowd noise, it's from a very famous album, and it's this kind of weird musical Easter egg. But figured you guys would enjoy that. Read Carl rant.
Is Frampton Comes Alive a lie?
I think that's real. I think that's.
I was gonna say, I thought that one they put a mic at the crowd on purpose.
No, I mean, no. This is like a studio album that has like crowd noise in it.
Okay,
Like
not
if
a live album.
No, if a studio album has crowd noise in it, they've rarely. I'm sure there's some, but rarely add crowd noise to a live album. Usually try to take that out.
Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down. All right, are we ready to go on to The Traveler?
I believe so. The Traveler. I gave it a 6 out of 10.
Gave this a 6.5.
I gave it a 6.
This song, you were talking about kind of interlude breaks between songs earlier, and I think that's what this is supposed to be. But it's not short enough. We lost Claude Cam.
We lost Claude Cam.
He's gone. But it's not short enough to put it on the end of the last song, but it's not really long enough to stand on its own. So it's there for the context of the album, and for that it's pretty good. Like when the vinyl gets here, it's probably going to play really good with this song, but in like recordings of the album and this being a track on the track list, I don't think it works in the way that we listen to it today.
I mean, this shit was too ethereal. I felt like I was ascending to the heavens. This was the first song I noticed it on, like faintly, but it comes back later where they have so much effect on the trumpets that it started to sound like a MIDI trumpet. Or it was a MIDI trumpet.
They were probably playing pedals with their trumpet.
Probably.
That's a very, very common thing. I could be wrong. It could be After Effects, but it's very common for like trumpet players and sax players to use effect pedals at this point.
Yeah. But either way, it sounded like a MIDI trumpet, and I was like, I know it's not. It can't be, but it just sounds like it is, and that kind of hurt my soul a little bit.
I wrote that I was happy this was short this time. I don't know. That's not like it isn't necessarily a diss. It kind of like came and went and was kind of this fleeting energy that just kind of appeared and disappeared, and not nothing bad, but
getting live lore.
Something good going on over there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Carl's like knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows him.
Yeah, actually, hilariously enough, to that comment, I know the bass player I used to play with records in Peter Frampton's studio. He doesn't really know Frampton, but he's good friends with Frampton's studio engineer in Nashville. It's a super small world. When you're musicians, it's like, you know, like I don't name drop, but it's like, you know, I could get 2 or 3 phone calls to get to this person or to this person or this person, and That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be interviewing all those people because I still need to keep my favors, but it's really funny how small of an industry the world is, or the music world is, sorry.
It's insane. Some of the guys I've played with, they're like, oh yeah, back in the day I went on tour with Cheap Trick. I'm like, what? Like, thanks for playing with me, brother.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've shared the stage with Grammy award-winning artists, and I'm essentially a local weekend guy at this point. I mean, that's just a thing. You just meet people like that. It just happens.
Connor, the only guy who hasn't played in a band.
I don't play live.
You don't play live. He is a background guy.
Mm-hmm.
Does this count? Or we're live right now?
Yeah.
Except for this.
You're
but
playing
we haven't
live.
had anybody famous on this. Except for
We've had
Max. Except for
Max.
Max.
Max, you just said you weren't famous. Do something.
Yeah. Show up to the studio and do something.
Yeah.
On-
Right
on a
over
Friday
with
night
Claude.
around 8:00.
We got plants.
Doing plans. We ready to move on?
Yep.
In the Dance, Act 2, 6.5.
Gave this one a 7.
I'm actually going to change mine. I wrote down a 4 like all the other interludes, but I'm going to give this one a 5.
Crazy to follow up a pseudo interlude with an actual interlude. But I did like this one because throughout these interludes, they throw in these like string parts, and I really like the strings in this and kind of wish there was more. And there is one song later that uses them, but not for nearly long enough. But yeah, this is another one where I think this and the 4 before it are kind of one song that perfectly transition, and then this one's going to go on to transition perfectly into the next song. So, I mean, points for that, but it's still an interlude.
So I really, really liked the strings in this one too. I really liked the key change. But now that you just said it, I realized why I like them. And that's because it reminds me of all that like city pop adjacent Japanese jazz that we both really, really vibe with. Because there's moments in all of that stuff where like it just kind of drops and there's like a piano player playing like string voices and keys. And that's one of the, I won't call it a trope, but that's one of the kind of tropes of that genre. And I think that was what this track reminded me of. And I think that's why it scored a point higher than the other interludes.
I think I've always liked the string instruments, just from a guitar player's perspective, because they can always sing way better than the guitar can. Like, I put the best guitar player in the world against the best violin player in the world, and I bet that violin sings a lot more. And it's just the nature of fretless is the honest answer. You can get a little more of the pitch shifting without it being so like hammery. And it just, there were no vocals, but it felt like there were, and I think that's just something to grab onto. There was a great string player on this. There's great string players on this. Kudos to them, I guess.
Yeah, just an expansion of what you were saying. A lot of that has to do with the fact that you never hear a single violin, hardly ever, except in a solo. And that's kind of why, like, some of the stuff we were talking about recording in the last video where, like, the guitars are too multi-tracked and stuff. That's a lot of why they do that stuff. They make these thick layers. Yeah, there's a little Easter egg for later. But
The track where we talked about that was very much a special case.
oh yeah, no. Yeah. We'll talk about that. But you know,
Talk about it next Thursday.
yeah, a lot of people don't realize that's what that comes from, is from this kind of orchestral thing. So I thought that might have been an interesting tidbit.
Also, to add back onto that, the problem with the guitars was the frequency range. Those high frequencies tend to fizzle out a lot faster and are a lot thinner. And then when you multi-track them, instead of stacking, they kind of just lengthen and fill. So it's, instead of it being like, if you have two guitars playing the exact same thing, it's going to essentially stack them and then push it through your drivers that way. The way with the the strings is way different because it's in that high end. So it just fills out the high end that's already very thin. And it's so lovely.
Yeah, that's why everybody likes to scoop the mids. Nobody likes the mud.
Scoop the mids, baby.
Honey, I scoop the mids. That's a good sound engineer joke. We'll have to get on that one.
There you guys go. If you needed enough proof that we were production losers, there's your rant for the day.
We ready to move on?
Yeah.
N29. I gave this song an 8 out of 10.
I gave this a 7.
I also gave this one a 7.
This song was kind of when I looked up and realized how far into this album we actually were and how not sick of the sound I was. Because we've had other albums where I make it 3 songs in before I'm sick of it. This one we're already 9 in and I haven't even started. I get there, but not yet. But no, I'm trying to.
So what we were at 25 minutes at this point, so that could be 3 songs on another album.
That is true.
We might be 30 minutes. I don't know. We're between 25 and 30 at this point.
Yeah, but my biggest thing that happened in this song is I usually in almost any song don't really like electric piano that much.
Oh, yeah.
But I think here, and there's a couple other places we've talked about on the podcast where I liked it. It worked really well here. And I mean, I think the reason I don't like it is because it's the default Logic MIDI, and that one specifically makes me very mad every time I hear it. But this wasn't that, and I thought it sounded really good. It's just a vibe, and I will listen to the song a lot.
You're just taking away points for being lazy when you don't like that MIDI. That's really funny.
It's not even because it's lazy. It's that noise makes me mad when I hear it, because you'll be like trying to test a note or something. Like that's what I usually use MIDIs for, is like figuring out notes. And I want just a regular default piano, and it's this bam, and I hate it. It's this horrible sound that comes up, and I think it's made me hate electric piano in general. But I mean, it was here, and then in the EP review we did in Columbus, or 2 times, it was used great, and I loved it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty picky about them. So I've got a couple of the Arturia suites and a bunch of standalone samples and plugins that I'll load and stuff. And I'll sit there and scroll through keyboard sounds for like 2 hours if I'm not watching the time. If I don't, give myself a category to start with, I will spend forever picking keyboard sounds. That being said, they nailed it on this track. I specifically wrote that the keys sounded good, which is something you hardly ever see in my notes. So I was really, really impressed. You want up, Logan?
Sorry, I had a question about my activities Sunday asked to me. Yeah, there was like a vibraphone at the beginning of this.
Was there?
Something.
I should have given an extra points for a vibraphone, though.
And I was like, this fucks. And then I couldn't figure out if it was a synth or an organ that was just very poorly plugged in. So synth answers that one. But the groove was there, but it wasn't the one I was feeling based on what we've heard. Like, if I were to be dancing to this up until this point, and then you get to the sad violin right there, and I'm like, kind of like slowing down my dance, and then I get to this one, I'm just tapping on what the fuck. In a good way, as a musician. But I think that this album started off as a non-musician's intro to jazz. And then now it has turned into You Should Be a Musician by the whatever ninth song,
yeah.
to really grasp and understand it, which is great for the musicians that are listening. But I think for non-musicians and or starters, it can be really confusing, just with what you've heard, to kind of have that big vibe switch into this, not necessarily more intricate stuff, but more towards the jazz-leaning side for me than what it was.
So, you just reminded me of a really good thing that I tell people a lot. They'll tell me I don't like jazz. And I will tell them that's because they haven't heard the right jazz yet. It's such an all-encompassing genre. I mean, it's a lot of times almost anything improvisational will get put into jazz. It either ends up being jazz or kind of a jam band. Like, those are the 2 ways it can be improvisational music. So a ton of stuff gets thrown into jazz. There will be something you like in the genre and something that you don't like in the genre. So it's such a wide landscape. So I just thought that was an interesting point since you said intro to jazz, I was like, well, that would depend on the person.
That is so
So
true.
if you come from this kind of like hip hop kind of thing, this kind of, it's definitely very Afrobeat influence. That's what they claim, which I won't claim to know a lot about that genre, but it seems like that's kind of where the transition would be. But at the same time, if you were into classic rock, I can give you jazz covers of classic rock tunes. You'd love that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of good ways to get into it if you're not into jazz, is the point I want to make.
For sure. always start with the craziest shit someone can ever recommend to you. It sounds like it's gonna melt your face, and it probably will in the best way.
We ready?
Yep.
Next up, No One Is Watching Me. I gave the song a 9 out of 10.
I give this one an 8 out of 10.
I gave this one an 8.5, so I guess we're all right here.
This is another time where the feature is just killing it. The horns were a little bit pulled back in this one, and I think it works really well, especially with this feature. There's a good amount of like solos sprinkled out, but they're not like almost not the focus, but kind of are. But yeah, I just mainly the feature. I didn't write down her name. It's shit. 1 second. I get it. Maybe I will. Olivia Dean killed it. Who's up next?
I can go. That's fine. Yeah. At this point, the feature I definitely wrote was a killer part. I did really like the trumpet solo as well. Before I forget, but I wrote at this point like, hey, if the band is watching, I think it would be really cool if they did a whole album of features like Santana style. Because the other day I was talking about Santana's Supernatural. I think it's Supernatural. Is Supernatural the album that went super big in the late 90s?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it's that one.
So I was talking about Santana's Supernatural, and I was like, man, so many people just don't love Santana when he's on his own, but if someone's singing, they love it. So that Santana, I mean, it's all guest stars. And they did another one of all guest stars, and this album, when I was listening to it, it was mostly these feature tracks that I really liked. I don't know. That's nothing against the band. I just thought that was really interesting. That was an interesting point to make at this point.
See, and I am the exact opposite side of that. I like Santana's tracks with like no vocals. I love Santana, and I liked and preferred the tracks on this without the vocals. And I think it truly just comes down to what you're listening for and what you're wanting to listen for. It's so weird.
You know, I'm typically the exact opposite. Usually, if you play vocal jazz for me, I'll turn it off. So that was another interesting thing is I preferred the vocal tracks on this. And short of like Ella Fitzgerald, maybe there's not much other vocal jazz that I'll go out of my way to listen to. But I actually, you know what? I take that back, because more of the kind of hip hop focused, the newer jazz stuff, I definitely like a lot of the vocal stuff.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
This song, I think we've pretty much said it all. Horns are great. Vocals are great. I mean, everything's pretty great. I just wasn't... this was about the right time to get a vocal track for me. But I was already locked back into, we've had a vocal track, we've had a few. I want more instrumentals. And then there was this one. So it kind of threw me off a little.
It probably could have been placed a little bit better, but I mean, I don't care. I was ready. I am just happy that I heard this song. Honestly.
Oh yeah, it was a great song.
You ready? Next up, we have Our Element, Act 3. I gave the song a 5 out of 10.
I gave this a 6.
I give this one a 5.
It's an interlude. It's 39 seconds, and this is the one with vocals on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of didn't like the vocals on this one.
Nah.
They just didn't do it.
Wasn't jiving with it. Not my thing.
I don't know. I wrote, but this time there's a quote. So originally this was the highest scoring interlude, I think, because I was like, oh, there's this like thing about dancing in it, so it like ties into the album more. So I guess I gave it more points for kind of, I guess, continuing with the vision and kind of the cinematic thing. I tend to like very cinematic albums that transport me to places in my head, and this kind of helped that a little bit about this kind of dance club and whatever.
You should have been here for season 1. I feel like we said that every week.
Congrats, you don't have the worst interlude on the show. Ezra
That's going to be really hard to beat.
Yeah, that is very true. I believe the combined score was 4.
It was not that high.
I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure I gave it like a -1.
Pretty sure I gave it a 0.5.
Well, and it's funny because we talked about it because like I took the interludes out to get my total album score. I was like, okay, if I take the interludes out, what is the total album score? I didn't count them. So I mean, I'm here kind of like they got low scores, but I'm viewing it as a track on its own, not how it goes into the thing. And we'll talk about that later when we get to.
So that is kind of the design of our breakdowns. It's very great.
Did this one? Shit, I hit the button. Did this one flow into the next song? Because I can't remember if this one did.
I want to say everything flowed into everything to a degree. It might have been like the last 3 seconds of this were like a da-da-da and then
Maybe, yeah.
downbeat.
I didn't. I usually have it written, but I don't have it here, and I feel like all the interludes did it. But I mean,
So you guys are gonna hate me, but I don't have ad-free YouTube, and that's how I listen to this today. Even though
me
I
too.
did-
Yeah.
I downloaded the album on Bandcamp when it came out this morning, but then I listened to it on YouTube, and I kept getting ads. I was like, I'm an idiot. So ask me how the flow is. I'll be like, yeah.
Well, I feel like usually you can tell if it's going to some degree.
I don't know, man. The political ads are getting very screamy.
If I hear another Firehouse Subs ad, I'm gonna explode.
You guys haven't made it to Spanish YouTube yet?
I do.
I am
dip in and out, yeah.
exclusively on Spanish Downy ad space.
I keep getting
terrifying.
Spanish Kroger ads.
It was like I'll wake up because I'm a degenerate. I sleep with my MacBook open with a 4-hour YouTube video going. So then I'll just have that over, and then I'll wake up at like 4 in the morning and just have Spanish Downy blaring through my Mac, scaring the shit out of me.
I'm just giving you a little bit of just giving you a little bit here, but having a MacBook as a nightlight might be the definition of white privilege.
No, you want to know what the worst part is? I turned the brightness completely down so it's a black screen, and I turned the keyboard down so I had to grab my phone to see what it is, like to turn it back up.
I'm pretty sure they invented the thing you're looking for a long time ago. It's called the radio.
Yeah, but it doesn't play Phasmophobia videos. I am a very privileged degenerate. There's no denying that. Look at where I am sitting and what I'm doing at this current hour.
Hey man, I have my own couch. I can't say anything about privileges. Look at this. It's so cozy.
Steven's punching
Yeah,
the air right now.
Steven's furious. He's fuming, man. All right,
We ready?
Ready to talk about Hear Me Cry?
Hear Me Cry. I gave it a 6 out of 10.
Damn, I gave this one a 7 out of 10.
I give this one a 7.5.
Wasn't this your lowest rated? No, was this your top rated?
You know, I may have just been like, no, it was Have Patience was mine.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
My bad.
I can go real quick. I did not like the reverb effect on the horns. Logan said it sounded like MIDI, which to kind of mirror that, when I heard it, I saw the Logic like MIDI trumpet bar pop into my head as soon as I heard it. But I don't know. I just kind of didn't like what this song was doing. Like not what it was doing was fine, but what it sounded like. It might have been like a key change or whatever the trumpets were playing. I did not like what they were doing.
I think it scored higher for me because it was more driving than the rest of the tracks. You know, it's kind of funny because most of this album gets 7s, and that's because a lot of it was so similar. I just kind of said, oh well, it's got to be a 7. The rest of it was a 7. But this track was just a little more punchy, a little more driving, and just gave me the idea that I liked it a little better than some of the other songs, but not better enough to be a whole point higher. So,
yeah. I think the problem I had with this song was this felt like the most produced. Everything else, there was like a certain raw and realness to it, like with the cracking of the trumpets, or like just like you could hear the sliding on the bass strings and stuff like that. Just little nuances that you couldn't hear in this. Everything sounded like there were so many fucking effects caked onto it that it took all the fun I was having right out of it. It kind of puts you more in the dance club, which I get that that's the idea to a degree for this, but I'm not going to a dance club to listen to this the same night I'm listening to Charlie XCX or something like that. It's just not happening.
So Logan did the roar.
I did do the roar.
What movie is that from?
Shrek 4?
It's from Shrek 4. Okay.
Do the roar.
Do the roar. Yeah.
I love you, daddy.
All right, we ready?
Yeah.
Next up, Shaking Body. I gave it an 8.5.
I gave this one a 9.
I gave this one a 7.
They brought it back. They brought the sound that I wanted from the horns back, and I think this is the one. Yeah, they must have done something. I don't know if they switch out their trumpet players, but this one 100% sounds like whoever they used for the entire last album, which is how I found this band. So it was really nice to see that, but like I could tell immediately that it was the same person who did the trumpet on that last one. So, oh, I missed this too. There's also some like spatial what? There's some like spatial audio effects on like bongos that are almost hidden through this album that I barely heard because it was like dead silent in the room I was listening in.
Do you not listen to your bongos through like reverb normally?
No, it was like one would hit over here, like in the background, like it sounded like it was coming from the back room, and then there's one over here, and they were like just all over. It was really cool to see, and I don't think that normally I would have heard it at all.
Weird. It must be they were done at the very end probably, so they could pan them like that. That's really cool to be able to get the separation. That means they were running a lot of gate too in order to really get it going. That is cool.
Yeah. Look, I think everything about this song was great. I don't know why I didn't give it a 10. Probably could. Probably should. Probably will. Maybe. Everything was great. Everyone felt important. And this is gonna sound bad. For the first time on this album, everybody felt important. Like everybody had their solo, they had their shot, or they had their moment to shine. And I think that's what I was looking for out of like a jazz album, is for everyone to get their spot to shine and not necessarily like just fill the background out. Which I mean is gonna happen. Everyone fills the background at some point, right? And they are all very important. But then you should get to show off. You're cool, you're doing your part. Show that off, man. And that happened here.
I don't know. Funny fact, most of the jazz bands I like have one very dominant person in the band normally. One very dominant player. And the rest just kind of walk in. I've kind of dug into this. I don't know why, but I've always gone into what personalities together make a good band and what genre, because I think it's really interesting to get into. And I think a lot of bands have to have like one domineering person, but that's a weird aside. This got a 7 like a lot of the other parts of the album, just because I felt like it was very similar. And I did listen to this over speakers today while I was doing other stuff, so I didn't really hyper focus like I wish I could have, but it just reminded me of the rest of it at this point. And I will say, I think everyone could probably score everything a point higher for me if I didn't, I don't know, have jazz privilege, I guess is what I'll call it at this point. So, just as a heads up.
Essentially, if he's not shitting on it, take it as a compliment.
Right, yeah.
It's just how I feel about anything Carl says in general. If it sounds like it's supposed to be nice, it probably is.
To say, if Carl and Steven are talking, take the compliment when you hear it. Don't listen to the rest of it.
Yeah, for real.
The score is not going to reflect what he's saying.
All right.
Ready to get into expensive?
Yeah.
Give it a 7 out of 10.
7.5.
I also gave this one a 7.
Mine's quick. It's my thumbs up plus. It's kind of just more of the same. And I mean, I liked it, so.
It's just very repetitive. It sounds good while being very repetitive, I think, is just my problem.
Yeah, I could. Yep. My notes say very much the same tempo, very much the same song, and as much as I appreciate that for the flow, it gets the same score as the last song. So.
All right, that was easy. Moving on. Streets is Calling. I gave this song a 6.5 out of 10.
I gave this a 7.5, but I think that's way too high. So I'm going to give it like a 7.
That's interesting. I gave this one an 8. Yeah, I'll talk about it if you want. Yeah.
Go for it.
I think this might have been my least favorite feature, actually.
Same.
Yeah.
But it felt like the features were the kind of change up that I wanted at different parts in this album that I was expecting. And I wrote that the feature had a new vibe that kind of brought this track into something else. And even, when I was listening, somebody was like, "Hey, did you turn on a different album?" When this one came on, it was such a different kind of everything. And whenever you add another artist into the mix, to go back to what I was talking about a second ago, even adding and subtracting one person, even if they're a feature, can make everything different in a group, and that happened in this track, and I think I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this song, the Ezra Collective, I love their part on it. The first feature, I don't know his name, but I'm also not going to go look because I took way too much time last time. I liked for the most part. It was the second feature that I was not really sold. Or the one that was doing like the chorus part with just saying the streets is calling. I was not feeling it, and I don't know. I liked everything else in the song, just kind of not that part.
Look, I was not the target audience for this song specifically. That's just a fact. This is definitely a far out of left field choice for my music taste. It's not bad at all. I mean, a 7 is a good score, especially for being outside of my wheelhouse completely. Just not for me. Good at what it is, not for me.
This song also was the last song to come out before the album, and I'm not gonna lie, I completely missed it because it dropped like 2 weeks after God Gave Me Feet for Dancing, and the space between the last two was like months. So I was not even. I saw it on accident like a couple weeks ago.
I feel like it came right in the time when I was looking for like 3 different things to be coming out, so it just fell.
Yeah, I completely missed it, and I feel like I didn't see any advertising for it either.
I don't think I saw any. No.
Pretty good. Kind of not part of it. Not for me is really how I'll break it down. And with that, we'll move on to the fourth interlude, Lights On, Act 4. I gave it a 6 out of 10.
I gave it a 7 out of 10.
All the interludes had the same score, and I added to it, so this ended up with a 4.
This is the one, I like the strings the most in this one, I think. And just, I wish there was more of that on this album. And I get that that's not what this album was, but can we get it later?
Yeah, go back like 20 minutes to hear about what I said about the last one.
Mm.
It stays about the same. And our little tangent about how violins work in headphones.
Yeah, I got to a point where at this point I was like, yeah, I really appreciate what they do for the flow, but I didn't need any of the interludes on this album in general. So
yeah. Move on to Why I Smile. I gave this song a 7.5 out of 10.
Gave this song a 7.5 out of 10.
sorry to ruin it, boys. I gave it an 8.
Ah, fucker.
This song pulled back. It laid back, and I kind of. All the other songs have this kind of forward driving groove. They have this kind of forward pushing groove, and this song just pulled back just enough that I felt relaxed. I kind of felt in everything better. There was more space in a lot of the parts of the track. It wasn't so heavy. And again, I think that might be that kind of Afrobeat influence. I am not familiar with that genre a lot, but a lot of the music that's adjacent that I do know has this very forward driving pulse. And it kind of felt like that relaxed a little bit on this track. Gave it a little more space. It had room to breathe. And then this track also had a killer piano solo. I think that was probably the extra half point.
Yeah, I think with this song, this is where I think I was getting a little busy at work, couldn't focus 100%, and was kind of, I guess, because of that feeling, the fatigue of this album. This is where it started. And for a 19-song album, for song 17, for that to start is impressive. But I still liked it. It's still a vibe, and I will listen to it again.
Yeah, this honestly, same thing must have happened. I don't think it did. I think this song truly just slipped into the background so well, in the best way possible. This was right back to that, like, oh, I can dance, and just listen, kind of thing. And it sucks that comes back at 17 because it's over in 2 songs. I really would like to get my hands on the ordering of this album. I would change a few things.
We will talk about that later. I have a pretty good note there. And the other thing I'm going to say right now is we all, this came out this morning, so we all listened to this at work at some point or another. So we probably all owe it to go back and listen to it again. I know I'm going to.
Yeah, 100%.
Even if it, I think it probably made the playlist for all of us. We all owe some time to sit down and really have a hash out with this album. But this came out this morning, so gotta give us a little bit of a break. On
So
some of
this will be a purchased vinyl.
I was gonna say I have the vinyl purchased and the CD shipped this morning, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna listen to it again.
I bought it on Bandcamp with the second track or something. Yeah, it was,
So this is one I'm hoping to get physically in my hands, but I ultimately will settle and buy it somewhere else.
I was mad. There was a pressing of it that looked really cool from a label, or not a label, but a record company that I hate. But it was like yellow, green, and red. I think just stripped down or like in like a triangle stripe pattern. It was sold out before I saw it, but I wanted to get that.
I'm really funny about that stuff. So if I'm at a show and the band is there and they can sign it, I will buy the expensive colored vinyl. But I will never spin that. So it's a collectible at that point, and I'll listen to it, download it. I will, and a lot of times if I do that, if I really really like the album, I'll buy a second copy, maybe even a used copy, so that I can then spin that one and not feel bad. So I've got a couple that I will literally never play, never open, that are like that.
Connor and I bought a pink and blue album at a metal show because, quote, that looks cool.
Oh, 100%. And I'm guilty of falling for that a lot. In fact, when I was shopping for groceries last night, I got a Lego set because I ended up in the wrong aisle, and I was like, whoa, that's cool as heck. It's a burger truck. And it's so cool because there's a dude holding a hamburger that's bigger than his head. And his shirt has a record on it. It reminded me of Album Book Club, and I was like, cool, this Lego set's for me. So I totally buy things just because they're cool randomly. So I definitely get that.
I got a bad habit about it with vinyl, man. And that's how Dope Lemon became one of my favorite
Bro,
listens.
I looked when I got home. I think I have like 15 Lego sets at this point, like sitting in a box somewhere that I do that a lot, actually.
I have the Lego Strat that my mom and girlfriend got me for my birthday, and like a kit to make it light up and like the amp light up. That bitch is still sitting in the box, yet to be assembled. It's gonna take me like 2 hours. I just need to put on The Adventures of Powers or something like that.
Aren't you glad I showed you that
I'm so glad.
horrendous movie?
I'm gonna just put it on when we were hanging out the other day.
I don't know, man. Legos are this funny thing because they have this difficulty scale. They have this like, oh man, that's fun, and then, holy crap, how many pieces is that? And then you're like, oh, it's just X pieces, because it's like once you get over that curve, you're like, oh, it's fine. So I bought something that was one of the adult sets, one of the ones that you get off Amazon that isn't actually Lego, and I swear that sucker took me like 6 hours straight, and I was not moving slow. So I've had a few of those. It's not like any harder than like you said, the Strat kit. So I don't know.
Like, oh man, dude, my girlfriend's bad at building Legos. We were doing the flower ones. I think the first one took us like 2.5 hours, which is insane for like some flowers. But the second one took over 5 hours because she got me the like Dom charger, and then she had flowers. So I built mine in 45 minutes. And she took her like 4 hours before I stepped in, and we finished them.
So we just had another idea. If you guys want to see more of Album Lego Club, let us know. I think we could probably make that happen with Lego Cam. I don't know. We'll have to talk to
Our producer.
our tech associates here.
I'll have to talk to our funders. Hey guys, you want to do those videos? All right, let's go into this next track, which Connor has had a lot of.
Have patience. No, I'm just like sculpting out the set for Album Lego Club. I keep hitting that button.
He's trying to fucking end the show.
Hold on. It's Have Patience. I gave it a 7 out of 10.
I gave this one a 9 out of 10.
I feel like a jerk. I gave this one a 6.
I think. Oh, he's on Carl Cam.
Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Do whatever you want.
I think honestly, I was ready for the end. Like I had accepted after having to go back to the last 4 songs like numerous times after missing transitions, that I was ready for the end. And then this showed up, and this was like, it was so beautiful. I just loved it. it was also the vibe of today, with the weather outside. It hit at the right time, at the right place.
Yeah, this one, it was like interlude plus minus. It felt short enough that it could have been another interlude. I did enjoy the jam, and that's how it ended up at what it ended up as. But I think it was a little short. I think was the main thing.
This was short, but honestly, if you took the time of this one and the next one and just split them, it'd probably be better. Because I think the next one goes on for a little longer, but we'll get to that. I think this is a pretty good wind down for this album. It's a good vibe. It has a really nice transition between this song and the last one, or the last one into this one. But other than that, it's the ending to an hour, close to the ending of an album, and it does that really well.
So, sorry, this is a weird aside. We probably can't call it Album Lego Club because they own that word. It would probably have to be Album Brick Club, which flows really.
What if we call it
that's-
Album Bricked Club with an ED?
Let's do that.
All right, sorry.
Carson, you're probably watching right now. It's part of your contract to
It is
watch
part of your
these.
contract.
Make that logo real quick. He's not watching.
All right, we ready to talk about everybody?
Are we all gonna mumble
That-
into the mics?
That is the song. It's
we're all
called
gonna get
Everybody.
real chachi.
Just mumble into the mic.
Okay, I gave this song an 8.5.
Yeah, give this one a 9 out of 10.
I also give this one a 9 out of 10.
All right, cut the bit.
Wow, Carl gave this a 9. I feel validated.
No, I really liked this track. It kind of, this one was the one for me on the whole album that summed up what it was, kind of the vibe, kind of the everything. And we finally got some movement. We finally got some texture changes, and they pulled stuff back and forth in the arrangement. And I don't know if there was a bridge or not. I don't know. I don't remember at this point, but I know I enjoyed what they did with the length. So that's why I didn't want to argue a second ago, but I was really happy about the length of this song. So I think we're gonna fight on that.
It's mainly the intro to it. The intro goes on a little too long, and the outro goes on a little too long. The middle, I loved every second of it, but I just think it's a little bit. It takes a little bit too long to get to what it's trying to do, and that was my issue with it. And then the ending wasn't as bad as the intro, but it was a little long.
Yeah, Carl really fucking hit the nail on the head, you asshole. Yeah, I think everything was great. It summed up everything. It was the length of what I was expecting most of these songs to be. When I saw the track length, I was expecting a 3-hour long album.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I saw 19 tracks, I was like, oh goodness.
Yeah, but they weren't all like that, and this one was. The only thing was, that damned it was, I wish it was a little shorter because I was ready to move on. I think I was ready to check out, maybe cut 15 seconds is all I'm asking off somewhere. Yeah, other than that, great.
I don't know. I think if I had to complain, I think it would have been nice if they let the band members go a little more. I feel like everyone did a really good job of being laid back and in the pocket on this album, and I feel like they were holding back some of the insanity of a lot of what I listen to, and I will 100% agree. I listen to jazz like I watch NASCAR. I'm there for the carnage. I'm there. I'm there to see the wrecks or whatever can happen, or just the pure insanity that goes on, and that's a lot of why I'm so drawn to it. It's just kind of the nature of improvising and just the magic and garbage moments you can have, and I feel like it as a whole, this whole album was kind of just it kind of just laid back. It kind of just did its thing, and it's not that I didn't enjoy that. I just wish they'd taken some more risks, and I think that's how this ended up a 9 and not a 10, because I really did enjoy this track.
I do want to say, good job. This was I'll be damned if this was not the best day for this album to come out. This is it was the uplifting vibe I needed for the day. It's when I tell you shit day, I mean shit day.
Yeah, we've definitely all had a day.
Yeah, it's universally.
Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say, I think Logan and I probably like longer tracks in general than Connor. I'm probably the worst. I mean, I'll listen to Octavarium. That's 20 minutes, but
I was gonna say I'll listen to some like 30-minute shit sometimes. Not
I
I'm
was
not
gonna say-
Allman
I was gonna
Brothers.
say, I'm not as bad as some that we've had on the podcast, but I'm not as will not listen to songs as long as you two will.
I can listen to like a 30-minute long like prog track.
so like an LP of a lot of the jazz I like might be 4 tracks, because one of those tracks is probably going to be 20 minutes, or very close to. And that's what I was laughing, because I was listening to this and I was like, oh man, they like almost started getting into that expansion stuff with the length, and I wonder if that doesn't have to do with the production. We talked about that earlier, because I think this would be super fun to see live. I think it would be super fun to go out and enjoy in a situation with a few drinks and a bunch of people around and the energy up. But at the same time, I kind of wish they'd gone full Chameleon and had the super long track with all the different modes, and maybe not the flying UFO solo that's in Chameleon, but some of the other stuff.
I like to think of this as your first cup of coffee, Jazz. Like, this is what I'm throwing on when God, coffee snobs come for me. When I throw my K-cup in the Keurig and get myself an instant cup of donut shop coffee, and I go turn on my Eris 4.5 BTs and throw this on and drink my coffee and scroll through Twitter news or whatever.
So you can rely on coffee snobs to make fun of you, because I know people that roast their own beans and then grind them and then French press them every morning.
Yeah, that's it. I think I know one of those people.
I mean, like they wake up to throw the beans in the oven and then get in the shower, and then, I mean, it's literally like a 2-hour long process to make a cup of coffee in the morning. It is delicious, but I've settled into buying my Dunkin' Donuts coffee and putting it in the grinder in the morning.
I just say I like my $4 box of K-cups that last me approximately 2 years, because I very seldom drink coffee. Actually, I'm gonna have a cup tomorrow morning.
Also, I just realized how much I've been talking with my hands all night. So if anyone finds that annoying, comment it. Let me know. I'll wear restraints or something.
Are you air dicking it?
My what? Excuse me?
Are you like making it look like you're like jerking it or sucking it, bro?
I don't know what you're on about. I think you're being misled here. think we're filming the wrong kind of video for the thing you're talking about.
Or I was thinking the Monday, Wednesday reel was going to be boring.
No.
Yeah, you just get the Han Solo of Logan Frozen.
The Carson Frozen.
Yeah, fucking Buff Carson. All right, let's talk about the pacing of this hoe.
Let's do it. I gave pacing an 8.5.
You motherfucker! I gave pacing an 8.5.
It's a 10. I think this is
That's-
a 10. And I'll go ahead. I think it's because of the interludes. As much as I really wanted to give them crap, I think that's the only way I could have listened for the whole hour without a break. And I think the interludes gave me the pause. Gave me the kind of a second that I would have been like, oh, okay, to cool off for a second in between, I guess, being on the dance floor is what they imagined. So I everything flowed into each other so well. With there's one exception, but I liked the vibe change there. So it I don't know.
How the fuck did you give this a 10 with YouTube ads, bro?
If you're used to it, you can do it.
That's true, but we had somebody not give something a good score because of speaker click. But this guy had YouTube ads and gives it 10. That's insane. Carson, you were called out. Anyway,
It's okay. He's never going to watch this.
it is just the vibe switch, I think, that really throws it off. And maybe, if I could just change some things around, I think it would be a better flow. But that's ultimately just for me. I would say that the greater population would probably agree with you that it is perfect. And every song does flow into each other, mostly.
That's what I was
There's a
going to
couple
say.
that
Yeah.
I mean this in a nice way, but I think you could change a lot of the tracks around and no one notice. I don't mean that in a negative way, but
I think it's a good shuffle album. Minus, there's anchor spots, and then if you can mix around most of the middle, I don't ever see that as a bad thing. I think that's actually, matter of factly, a good thing. That means you have good songs that can hold their own anywhere. and I think this is kind of a great example of that.
Completely agree. I think there was, I didn't have any issues with the pacing, minus like one song that's a little out there, but I mean it still fits on this album, and I didn't get any fatigue until track 17, like we were talking about, and I mean that's impressive. 'Cause I think I've said it several times in this podcast that it gets harder and harder to get a good pacing score every song above like 12.
Okay, so if you take the 4 interludes off, what were we at here? 15. Okay,
That's still.
that's still that's still above 12.
I've seen people mess it up with 13 pretty bad. So.
I mean, like I told you, that what I'm looking for is like 4 or 5 most of the time, so that
Mhm.
would make sense.
All right, we'll move into the album art. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10.
I give this just a flat 8.
Sorry, I think it says 8. I can't read my own handwriting.
Yeah, I mean it does exactly what you think it's gonna do. It's like the small venue, like jazz dance. It fits the vibe of what it's trying to do really well. I mean, I think I don't know about across the board because I haven't seen all of their album arts, but at least this one and the last one do exactly what they're trying to do pretty perfectly.
Yeah, I really guess the only thing is this really just cements that we are the least 3 qualified guys to be talking about this album, bro. This is it. There's not a single white guy on there. And that's fair. This is definitely not white guy music, and it fucks. It is so good.
I don't know, man. Not to
It
sound
goes hard.
like a negative, but that usually means the album's better.
That is so fucking true.
I don't know, with the maybe the exception of like
Rush.
some metal albums maybe, I think, but I don't there's no sort of judgment based on that here, but that's usually a good thing for me. But yeah, I put it lets you know what it is. I wouldn't necessarily buy this album based on the album art, but I think I know enough about this band, I've heard enough about this band, that if I'd seen this vinyl and it was a deal, I probably would have picked it up just based on that anyway. But the other thing I really liked is the visualizer is based on the album art for all of this, so they did a really good job with really coherent branding, which is the same thing. I think I rated the flow so high. The mix is very coherent all the way together, so it seems like all of it is very unified, and it's a very good package overall.
Yeah,
That's
completely
probably
agree.
one of our bingo works for the night. Package.
Yeah, I will say, I do think if I saw this on the shelf, I would be almost a little confused by what I picked up. But that's just because it kind of looks like it's a different era.
A little bit.
Than they're playing, because to me this screams like, this also kind of looks like 80s high school like auditorium, which is not even close to the vibe of this. But I think the picture itself fucks. It would just throw me off if I picked this up and then got like Afro jazz. I'd be like, oh, it's like what it should be, but what it shouldn't be at the same time.
You ready?
Yeah.
Music overall, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10.
Gave it an 8.5 out of 10.
You guys aren't gonna like this. You're gonna have to let me speak, but I
Yeah,
gave
you
it
can
a
just go
7.
first.
I gave it a 7.
That
and
is so
That's-
fair.
okay. So
Not bad
so
at
I
all.
rated all of the tracks that sounded similar on this a 7, and since that was so much of the album, I was like, it's got to be 7. It's got to be that. But I will say, I think if you took all the features and then the last track on this album and made a 5-track EP, that EP would be a 10. I think that EP would be a 10 together. I think you would get the last song being my favorite part of all of the other parts, and then maybe not even include which track was that? Streets is Calling. Maybe don't even put Streets is Calling on there. Maybe just do the other features and just put those out as a small little thing. And I think most people would enjoy that. It would be the perfect little slice. So I don't know. I had a very interesting internal fight with what to rate this album, because I really wanted to be like, no, I love this, because I loved a lot of it. I just don't think I loved it in the quantity it was given to me. If that makes sense.
That's 100% fair. Yeah.
Oh, my turn, your turn?
Well, I was thinking about it. We just said for an hour and a half why we like this album.
Yeah. I can tell you why I dislike it. And the honest answer is what Carl said earlier. I wish they would go. Like, I wish they would do the crazy shit. It's my honest preferred way to play. I don't like playing one-to-one covers or something. I would much rather lay down a riff and then roll from there. I think that's the most fun way to play when you're just jamming. Yeah, it's the easiest way to jam, and ironically enough, can lead to some of the best songs that you can write. And I feel like you get part of that process here. You don't get the bass player kicking on a fuzz pedal that knocks shit off the walls to take a fucking crappy solo in the middle of this weird jazz cover of AC/DC, you know?
Yeah, it never turns into off-brand reggae.
Yeah. So it's like I want everybody to have fun and go out and explore those options. And I think I just want the fun side of musicianship to come out a little bit more, I guess.
And that's a lot of what jazz should be. Maybe not what jazz is, but what jazz should be. Is a conversation and a freedom to explore whatever you want within that conversation. If that makes sense. That's probably one of the defining things that makes good jazz good is the conversation that's going on between who's there.
Yeah. I mean, I like this album a lot. I've already bought it twice, and I will listen to it again.
Yeah, I 100% gave this a 7, but these tracks will make it on a playlist if they aren't already on a playlist. There's a good chance that some of these have been scrolling through my Spotify jazz stuff, and I mean, in that context, you know, as a one shot, I 100% would love any of these tracks.
I know the two that I knew were out before last month are definitely already on playlists. There hasn't really been enough time to add the rest of them onto a playlist. Came out a couple hours ago, but they will be.
Yeah, I think this will be added to my daily listen rotation. I've got Short and Sweet, Rose Paint Cadillac, and it'll be this just to throw in there before I throw in my just random playlist. It's just nice to listen to an album, like something cohesive, to get through the workday, especially when it's one you know. And I want this to be one that I know. Very good job.
Yeah. Got anything else to close it out with?
Nothing about the album other than share and subscribe. This is important, guys.
Oh.
We definitely could use anything especially if you've made it this far. If you made it this far, if you enjoy listening to us talk, and if you have any ideas for new content, if you want me to ramble about what good jazz is or give you good jazz recommendations, I'm really good at that. If you ask for that, we'll make it happen. You know, any of that stuff we'll do. So just comment and tell us what you want to see.
Can confirm. He's really good at giving you recommendations. Now, you have to go and remember the outrageous names that he gives you, because he will forget what he told you.
Oh, I
in the
100
video.
Yeah, I 100% will not remember what I told you to go listen to. So, yeah, get me on video. That's a good way.
So I've asked Carl on numerous occasions, to which he goes, "Oh, I'll just play you it," and then he'll go over YouTube, not tell me what it is, and then play this killer album. And then, at the end of the day, I'll be like, "What'd you play?" I'll be like, "I don't know." Oh my God, you dick. But yeah, also, we need songs to review in our song review videos. So drop that with the artist name in the comments. There you go.
I'll lean into what
Was
we're
that
doing next
Batman?
week. What?
I thought I saw Michael Keaton's Batman on your phone.
Not that I know of.
I almost thought you were going to say Michael Myers Batman. I was like, no.
Yeah, Austin Powers.
All right. Join us next week where we listen to Petals and Thorns by David. This was Dylan's. He's been on one other time. This was his pick. Him, KB, and hopefully Witchy are going to be pulling for that one. So.
Yeah, don't forget, I won't be there.
Nope, you're going to be there.
Fuck.
Nice try.
All right, I guess we'll see you next week.
What we got?